You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts now.
I'm back. Rodriance for Black and White Sports. Oh, I find this very interesting as we have a former high school football coach that is having to take a case all the way to the Supreme Court because he got punished for wanting to pray after games. That's right. After games were over, after the kids sung their school song, he wanted to go out on the field and he would say a prayer. Well, the school system that he worked for had a problem with this. Because he wanted to get down on a knee and pray, they had a problem with this. And there has been major repercussions from this, and we've got a couple of NFL quarterbacks that have come out in support of this coach, Joseph Kennedy, and his right to be able to pray after games without repercussion. Clarence Thomas, the Honorable Clarence Thomas, has made some interesting comments. And I'm going to tell you what Clarence Thomas said, and he pulled Colin Kaepernick on their ass to throw back in their face at the school system yesterday. So this is very interesting. Supreme Court tackling case about praying football coach. The Supreme Court will tackle a dispute between public school officials and a former high school football coach who wanted to kneel and pray on the field after games. The case before the justices on Monday involves Joseph Kennedy, a former football coach at Bremerton High School in Bremerton, Washington. For years, the coach would kneel at the center of the field following games and lead students in prayer. The school district eventually learned what he was doing and asked him to stop. Kennedy's lawyers say the Constitution's freedom of speech and freedom of religion guarantees allow him to pray on the field with students free to join. But the school district says Kennedy's religious speech interfered with students' own religious freedom rights and could have effect of pressuring students to pray and opened the district itself up to lawsuits. God, are you kidding? The school district says it tried to work out a solution so Kennedy, who is a Christian, could pray privately before or after the game, including on the field after the students left. But Kennedy's lawsuit followed. The case comes to the court at a time when conservative justices make up a majority of the court and have been sympathetic to concerns of religious individuals and groups, such as groups brought challenges to coronavirus restrictions that applied to houses of worship. But cases involving religion can also unite the court. Last year, for example, the court unanimously sided with a Catholic foster care agency that said its religious views prevent it from working with same-sex couples. Already this term, in an 8-1 decision, the justices ruled for a Texas death row inmate who sought to have a pastor pray out loud and touch him while his execution was being carried out. A case from Bremerton, meanwhile, has already caught the justices' attention. In 2019, the justices declined to get involved in the case at the earlier stage, but 4 justices were critical of lower court rulings for the school district, writing that an appeals court, quote, the understanding of free speech rights of public school teachers is troubling, saying essentially the lower courts don't know what the hell they were doing. Kennedy started working at Bremerton High School in 2008, and it was his practice at the end of games. After players and coaches from both teams would meet at midfield to shake hands, to pause, and kneel to pray. Kennedy said he wanted to give thanks for what his players had accomplished and for their safety, among other things. Kennedy initially prayed alone on the 50-yard line at the end of games, but students started joining in, and over time he began to deliver a short inspirational talk with religious references. Kennedy says he never required players to join or ask any student to pray. He also led the team in prayer in the locker room before games, a practice that predated him. The school district didn't learn of Kennedy's practice until 2015. It told him then that he needed to stop praying with students are engaging in overtly religious activity while, quote, still on duty as a coach. After Kennedy continued to pray on the field, he was placed on leave. His contract expired, and he didn't apply to coach the following year. A decision is expected before the court begins its summer recess. Now, let's get to the NFL players. In one brief filed, by the way, the Supreme Court's looking at this. In one brief filed in support of Kennedy on behalf of Minnesota Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins, Chicago Bears quarterback Nick Foles, and former NFL quarterback Drew Stanton, among others, the current and former players invoked Colin Kaepernick. They hit them back with Kaepernick, though at first, not by name, kneeling during the National Anthem to protest racial injustice. Quote, that practice, like Kennedy's prayers, is controversial, courageous to some, offensive to others, they argued. But if Joe Kennedy had taken a knee to protest racial injustice, the district almost certainly would not have argued that his speech was somehow the state's. Rather, there would have been no question that it would have been protected private speech. Wow. As the players, quote, can attest from their experience at all levels of sport, high school, college, and pro, audiences understand symbolic acts of speech on the field to reflect the views of the individual athletes, whether they are Colin Kaepernick or Tim Tebow, Shaquille O'Neal or Joe Kennedy. The analysis does not change because the speech is religious rather than political, they told the Supreme Court. Good job, Kirk Cousins and Nick Foles. Drew Stanton, too, for standing up. Now, this is what Clarence Thomas had to say. Clarence Thomas just come out and said it out loud. Would the school have the same issue if they were out there, if the teacher was out there kneeling like Colin Kaepernick after games or during the National Anthem? Would the school have the same problem with Joe Kennedy or anybody else if they were protesting on behalf of racial injustices? Clarence Thomas said, would they have the same problem? He's questioning whether or not they would, like these NFL quarterbacks. It's a great damn argument. In part, I will continue to say, you want to talk about blackballing? I think in part, I think teams had a problem with Tim Tebow being so overtly open about his religious beliefs. I do. Okay? Now, look, there's no doubt he was lacking as a quarterback, okay? But you would see after games he would pray, and those players would gravitate to Tim Tebow after the game to pray with him, okay? Wow, it's amazing what's going on in this country. This is part of the problem with this country right now is, look, trying to squash something like a prayer he was leading, started by himself, that students chose to join in on. Period. Okay, it was after the games, after the fight song. It is unbelievable that this kind of thing, the school district had a problem with it. Wow. But good job, Kirk Cousins. Good job, Drew Stanton. Good job, Nick Foles, for coming out and not being afraid to point out the Colin Kaepernick relation. They did that. Of course, they'll probably get the stinky eyeball now from the NFL for having done it. Tell me what you think, black and white sports fans. We're damn sure going to keep an eye on this one, I guarantee you. Peace. I'm out. Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.